Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Elevate. My name is Jessica.
My name is Darwin.
And we're here. Today's topic is going to be about
Bullying.
bullying. So the reason why we're talking about this topic is because right now we have a live audience on our Instagram who's watching us record this episode. But earlier we were on Darwin's Instagram. I was going to say babe. And we were asking some of the people that were live, like, what would be some of the topics that they would like us to talk about? And so J Family Fitness, shout out to you guys. She mentioned that her son was being bullied at school. He's 8 and he was being bullied by a kid who's older. And so she's furious, of course, and she just wanted us to talk about the topic. And I have so many things to say about this topic.
I feel like it's becoming a trend because there was I believe it was Bernice that shared to your sister. She shared a post of another kid that was being bullied in the hallway. They was like stripping him from his clothes. He was probably around the same age, like
And
8, 9, 10.
I saw a little preview of this video. I didn't finish watching it because it was getting me very upset and I just didn't finish it. But was the hallway, that was a school hallway?
I don't know if it looked like a building. I also don't know if this is just like mostly happening in New York City because I feel like this is where I see it the most.
Obviously not, because no, this is happening everywhere. I mean, this is what you know because you're here.
But is it happening more here because we're so like congested with people? Like I feel like in other states, for example, like there's not very city-ish unless you're talking about like Houston or Dallas, something like that.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that shut you down. I think that bullying has been around for ages. I mean, it's not something new, but I think that everything trickles down to our parenting.
Agreed. And I also to say this, I know bullying happens everywhere. I see it the most on my feed in New York City because obviously we're in New York.
Right, but then you have other states where mass shootings are occurring in the school. And so I feel like all that is connected. Like when they research and they capture these guys if they're able to, sometimes they get to the bottom of things and they realize that kid at some point was being bullied themselves. And, it's like a trickle effect where it affects them mentally and they want to take matters into their own hands. So I think any time that you hear your child saying that they're being bullied or even if it's not your own child, but your child comes to you and says, well, I saw so-and-so, he's being bullied or she's being bullied. I think every parent should take that very seriously, especially in the times that we're living.
Yeah.
I think that there should always be intervention and that it shouldn't be ignored no matter how little or big the situation is. It shouldn't be ignored because we might think it's not a big deal, but for that child who's under development and who's, like elementary school years, middle school, high school, those are such important years for your development stage. They determine who you will become a lot of the times as an adult.
Yeah.
And so it's very important for us to stay on top of that and to make sure that those problems are resolved and that we don't just brush them underneath the rug just because, let's say, maybe that child doesn't have a parent who's there, like pendiente, because that's what happens a lot of times. The people. Am I going to continue to talk the entire podcast?
I mean, you haven't stopped, so I'm not going to interrupt
sorry.
you.
Go ahead. Do you have something to say? I just don't want to take away all the time.
I feel like it comes down to the parenting, like we was kind of mentioning, because if a kid is being bullied and you don't know about it, the chances are is you don't have a strong enough bond with that kid that kid could tell you what's going on. So it starts from parenting
Sometimes that could be it, like a lot of the times, but I think sometimes the kid is ashamed or
scared
or they don't want to seem like they're a wimp, in front of the other classmates. Like, oh my God, he went and told his mom or dad. So sometimes it could be that they're ashamed to say, but that's why it's important for us to talk to our kids about bullying when they're at that age to go to school. because it's either gonna happen to them, unfortunately, at some point, or they are gonna see it at some point being done to somebody else. So it's important for us to raise children that are have high self-esteems, that believe in themselves, that know, you know what, if somebody's doing something wrong, stand up for what's right.
Yeah.
Like, even if, they're not bullying you, if you see someone make a smart remark about somebody else or bullying somebody else because they're short, because they're fat, because they're anything, because they're different from a different country, a different race, anything, like, say something. Don't just be quiet, because everybody else who stays quiet and just laughs at the joke of the bully just gives that bully more power.
Yeah, because that's a problem too. A lot of the videos you see is like, you see a whole bunch of kids and there'll be like one kid being bullied.
Right.
And everybody's just out recording.
Right.
So it's like,
that is never right.
Yeah.
Like, if I was to ever see Armani just recording a situation like that, I would be so upset with him. Like, why are you just standing around recording this while this kid is like being beaten down? Like, no, it's not right. If you're not gonna, I'm not telling him that he needs to get into it.
Yeah.
But at least get some other adults, call the cops, whatever it is that you need to do. But don't just stand there and just watch like it's a joke.
Yeah. Especially if it's somebody just being picked on. Like, now, if it's just like a fight that's going on between two people, just avoid it. I feel like if you have nothing to do with it, just walk away.
Yeah.
But
I was always taught to do that because, I'm from the hood. Like, you do this most of the time because there's so much conflict in the streets and so much, stuff that you don't want to get involved in. But we're talking about kids, though. We're talking about school. Like, when they're in school and that stuff is going on, no, speak up. Tell somebody. Tell the teacher. It doesn't matter. They're not going to say, oh, so-and-so said. Like, no. If you as a kid see something going on like that, speak up. If you don't want to get involved yourself or say something because you don't want to get involved, tell an adult. Like, teach your children to do that.
And also, I feel like teachers should be held, I don't want to say responsible, but like, they should be like a protocol or something before school starts, that, because you're an adult, like, you know what kids do. So you can tell, like, okay, this kid is being a little funny with this kid and he looks like he feels uncomfortable. Because in class, you will always see like a teacher move somebody to the front or move somebody to the back. Usually the kids on their back are the ones that are the most disruptive. Mm-hmm. So if a teacher sees like a trend that's going on, like that should be the red flag automatically. Okay, we need to nip this in the butt.
Yep. Now, we need to have a meeting. We need to bring in your both parents, and we need to talk about what is the problem here. Yeah, I agree. I saw a video the other day, a couple of weeks down, on TikTok of a mom who went to the school, and she was upset because she was called into the school because her son was going to be suspended.
I know what video you're talking about.
And she stood up for her son all the way. Reason being, because he did something to another kid in the classroom.
No, he was laughing in class. That's what it was.
He was laughing in class? All right. And that's why she was upset, because... Are you sure?
Yeah. He was laughing in class, so they gave him detention because he was disruptive. Because he was laughing in class.
Oh, no, we're talking about two different videos.
Oh.
But that's another one. Okay, the video I'm talking about, the kid he was being bullied by another child in the class. And the mom had mentioned it to the school that there was this problem, this conflict going on with her child and another child. But apparently the school didn't do much. So the kid continued to bully her child. And so when he stood up for himself, he was going to be suspended. And so she was called into the school. And she, right in front of everybody, she told her child, explain to me what happened. Like, I want to hear it from your mouth. And she goes, was this the kid who was bullying you that you were talking to me about? And he said, yes. And so she said right then and there, I was like, that's all I need to know. I brought this situation up to the school. Nothing was done. And I told my son, if that kid bullied him again, to stand up for himself. I'm like, I do not care. And I think it was, they wanted to, I don't know if they wanted to leave him for detention, but she refused. She was like, no, he's not staying for detention. And then the school officials were like, okay, then he's going to be suspended. And she was like, I don't care. I'm standing behind my child because I came to the school and I brought this issue up to you guys and you guys did nothing. And now that he stood up, he's going to get like detention or be punished for standing up to a bully. No. So I applaud that mom because she was listening to her son. And you know how bad it would have been that child, for standing up for himself, would have gotten detention, would have gotten in trouble in his house, and her mom, let's say, would have only listened to the school's, side of the story. Like, that's terrible for a child to feel like he won't even be backed up by his own mom. So I applaud her because she really stood up for her child.
And to it comes down to, I mean, we've always said that, like, for example, video games in our household, like, Armani does not play any violent video games. So
that was very important for me.
Yeah.
From the very beginning. Like, I'm still very, like, a little, like, resistant when it comes to video games.
But my point is that you never know how deep, let's say, in a depression or, like, mental health, like, deep issues a child has. Mm-hmm. So when he's being pushed by somebody, and then he sees that his parents are trying to help him, for example, in that case, and they're going to school, he did the right thing. He told his mom, like, hey, it was this kid. The mom did the right thing and went to school, and nothing happened. It's like, you never know when is, like, everybody has a ticking point.
Right.
And you
can't expect the person to just stand back and let everybody just, oh, yeah, just dame una galleta, and I'll just stand here. Like, no. And
different states have different laws. So if you're in a more loose state, let's say, that a kid has access to a weapon, you don't know what that kid is going to do.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's important to stay on top of these situations. When you see a bully, and it needs to be corrected, it needs to be spoken about, there needs to be mediation between the parents. Something needs to happen. The kid needs to be pulled out of school, whatever it is. The kid needs counseling.
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't take it as far as that. You see that a child is is bullying constantly, make sure that child takes counseling. The school should be providing that. I think at that point, let's say the child doesn't have a parent who's very involved. There's parents who, unfortunately, they don't care much. And, sometimes they'll know that their child is a little bully, but they won't do anything. Like, they'll be called to the school, and it's like they still see that the child hasn't changed any behavior whatsoever. At that point, I feel like the school should take matters into their own hands. Okay, if you as a parent aren't going to control your child, we're going to make sure this child is seeing counseling in the school building if he's going to be part of our school. Because at the end of the day, that child is going to be around many other children, and God knows what happens. Like, there's just these terrible mass shootings, which I know not all of them have to do with bullying per se, but I know that a lot of them it's mental health.
Yeah.
It's mental health at the end of the day. So, because nobody who's sane from the head is going to do that.
And for parents, like we always talk about in most of our podcasts, how the name of our podcast is Elevate, because we want you guys to try to elevate your life. And I feel like if you're a parent and you're in a situation where your surroundings, your neighborhood, is really bad, like to the point where you fear walking for yourself, if there's anything that you can do to get your kid and yourself, your family out of that area, like, do it. Because a lot of people stay in the area, one, because they just either fear moving out or just are comfortable because they're getting, let's say, benefits or whatever. And you can get that somewhere else.
Yeah.
So don't fear, like, you can't take the leap just because you're comfortable where you at and you're like, oh my God, like, all the people I know are around here. Like, you got to worry about the safety of your family, because that's why we moved where we was. Mm-hmm. And our son or daughter was not walking outside by themselves, period. Yeah. And we was just like, okay, this is getting too bad. We needed to take a sacrifice, and we moved.
I mean, we were thinking long term. We still are. Because at the end of the day, whatever your kids are surrounded by is, you can't control everything. You can't control everything, but you kind of can by just, making sure that their environment isn't so bad, because it has a lot to do with who they grow up to be. So it's very important, Yes, I would say definitely make the sacrifice. If you live in an area that you don't, isn't safe, and you have the capabilities to move somewhere else, like, go. For your children, go.
Yeah, because then they start getting older and they fall into bad circles, bad habits.
And then it's too late.
Yeah, and you start complaining like, oh, why is this kid like that? Well, for 20 years, that's all they saw.
Right.
So, like, what do you expect?
We need to be so vigilant.
And it's not everybody, because all of us grew up in
Right.
bad situations.
Right.
But the majority of people that grew up in those scenarios, you will still see them in the same place.
Yeah. Because, that's all they know. Sometimes if you don't seek outside of your bubble, you won't know anything else. But it doesn't have to be everybody's story, because there are people who, get curious and, they try to venture outside of what they've grown in. But that's not the case for everybody. Most people get comfortable in an area and they don't want to leave.
Yeah.
So, definitely.
But even if you don't want to leave, then take the time to educate your kids on what's right or what's wrong,
and, and be very vigilant.
Yeah, the proper path.
I think that's what makes a difference in some of us. That we grew up in the hood, but our parents were still, pendiente. Like, okay, I need to make sure that my kid is like okay, that they're not in bad steps. That they're not hanging out with the wrong people. Like, my mom was extremely strict with me.
I was a little more loose.
You were,
but I came from like divorced parents and a broken household and living back and forth between. So it wasn't like.
I think with you, thank God, you kind of grew up in a block where everybody was kind of like family, a little bit. You grew up like with a group.
Yeah, pretty much we had a circle. Right,
and thankfully, they weren't so terrible compared to,
Yo, my friends were good.
They weren't the ones like doing the drugs and stuff, so.
Yeah, my friend circle was good, regardless of us hanging out, whatever, but.
Regardless of you guys being around the wrong people too, like.
Yeah, but we all had like either, mother and father. Well, I think I was the only one without both like together.
Right. So there were parents who were there involved. So, but it's very easy to get lost, if you're in a place where there isn't much control of anything. But we're getting off the topic. So let me see.
Don't we always?
I know. All right. So what do we think are the appropriate steps to take if your child comes to you and says, "Hey, Mom, I'm being bullied"? What would you do, babe?
Boy.
What would you do? I would ask questions like what is happening, because sometimes
what's bullying for them,
right? Like, because sometimes kids are very sensitive and they could what really happens. And if I do feel like my child is really being bullied, I would definitely go to the school.
Yeah, for sure.
I would speak to the teacher and I would explain what's going on. My child is feeling uncomfortable. There's a classmate that is bullying my child, and I would like to meet that child's parent. Like, I want a meeting. I want a meeting with the child and the child's parent, because the child isn't the only one that needs to know. The parent also needs to know, because they're the ones raising that child. And we need to get to the bottom of why your child feel like it's okay to bully.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely the right way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Now, if that doesn't work, I would definitely be that mom like that says, you know what, the next time he bullies you, stand up for yourself. If it escalates and the school isn't doing anything about it, they're not moving that bully out from that class, nothing is being done, I would either go to the principal and ask for my child to be put in a different class, or I would really consider taking my child out of the school. The fact that they're not taking the appropriate steps to solve that issue, which is important, says a lot of them as a school, and I just wouldn't want my child to be part of that school.
So let me ask you a question. If, let's say you tell your kid to stand up for himself, and it doesn't go as planned, and whatever, you know what I mean, and now it puts your kid in a in a worse place because now he's gonna be afraid. Period. If he ever comes an issue like that.
I'm going to share something. I actually had this conversation with Armani maybe like a month ago because I saw a video and it made me understand that, you know, Gary Vee and all this stuff came to my mind. And I called Armani and I was like, Armani, I need to talk to you. You know what a bully is, right? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, you know it's wrong, right? I never want to hear that you're bullying anybody, that you're making fun of anybody for anything. I better not hear you doing something like that. And I told him, you know what? Here's what you're going to do if somebody ever tries to bully you. I was like, you know who you are, right? You're Armani Nunez. Handsome young man, right? You know, I'm like boosting him up. Like, you're a handsome, smart young man, right? You know who you are, right? He goes, yeah. I'm like, you come from a loving family, right? Mom and dad love you. You have a sister. You have a strong support system, right? Somebody comes and bullies you about anything. Your height, your shoes, your clothes, your hair. Pay zero mind. Their opinion does not matter. Do you like how your hair looks? Yes. Do you like how your shoes look? Yes. Do you like your clothes? Yes. Do you like yourself? Then it does not matter how that person feels about who you are. And that is the perfect way to teach your child to counterattack a bully.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, a bully is just a hurting child.
Yeah.
A bully is a child that's trying to get attention. Unfortunately, the wrong way and by hurting others because they're hurting themselves. So I explained to him at that point, bullies are hurt. So you need to act with compassion, even though you don't want to, because they're saying mean things to you. So what you want to do is say mean things back.
Yeah. We was actually having this conversation today between me, Amaris, Nestor, and all that, because Nestor was getting comments, like negative comments.
It also applies for adults.
Yeah. It applies to the comment section. So we was literally talking about this, like just like I kind of told him the way to respond to it because I consume a lot of Gary Vee content, and he every time somebody comments something negative, like he snaps into my head right away. And you know, you usually want to say like fuck off.
Yeah, but like what? Yeah, you just want to like be mean back because it's like why are you doing this? But then you center yourself back and you say, you know what? I know why you're doing this. You're hurting.
Yeah.
You're hurting, and I'm sorry you're hurting. I don't know why you're hurting, but it has nothing to do with me. And
you can be a adult bully too. Like, don't be out here just like looking at kid shit. Like, evaluate yourself. If you're a person that you're on social media and you're going into people's posts to comment something negative, you are a bully.
Yeah.
And you need to reevaluate yourself.
Can we get an applause for that, please? Not that they need an applause, but you know, that point, yeah. It's not just kids. This is why, you know, I stress that sometimes schools need to take matters into their own hands if they see that the child isn't doing the appropriate things to make sure that their child isn't continuing to bully. Because at the end of the day, either you take charge of your child and make sure they don't continue to bully other kids, or we're going to have to make sure that the child is seeking therapy, counseling, or they're going to have to be pulled out of the school because they end up becoming a threat to other children's peace, to other children's learning session in class. They become a distraction. They hurt other people's, you know, kids' mentality and, you know, their self-esteem. But this is why it's very important for us as parents to teach our children to love themselves no matter what. Because for instance, I can take this, even though my mom wasn't very like open about these conversations, but from the age of 13, I consider myself to be very confident in who I was, and I knew who I was, and I knew who I wanted to be. So I was very clear on like me as a person, like from the age of 13, which I'm very thankful for. And I think part of that was because, you know, my parents started to give me support in modeling career. They would put me in modeling school, and that gave me confidence. Yeah. But me going back like in high school, like there was many instances where I could have felt peer pressured, or, you know, they would make like little remarks. 'Cause I've always been like short, petite, small, like very like flaquita, like skinny. And there were instances where, you know, people will make like smart remarks, but they didn't get to me.
Yeah.
You know, because I was okay with myself. Like I was confident about who I was. So I kind of just brushed it off. Like, okay, whatever. Like it didn't affect me because I was confident. So it's very important that we nurture our children's confidence, that we make sure we tell them how important and how beautiful and how supported they are by their families, so that when these kids who don't have that support system come around them and try to push them down, they're not easily shaken up.
Yeah. And usually if you have high self-esteem, you walk around differently.
Yeah.
Like there's just like
and bullies wouldn't usually bully somebody who has a high self-esteem, because bullies go for the ones who look weak.
Yeah, vulnerable.
Right. Because their goal is to feel like they're more powerful than you. So if they know that you have this aura and this, you know, thing about you where you're walking, you know, pridefully, and you know you're confident in yourself, they're usually not gonna go for you. They're gonna go for the person who's quiet, who's in the corner, just like shy, who is pushed around easily.
Yeah.
So please watch out for your kids. Please make sure that they know what a bully looks like. Please make sure that they're compassionate, caring, loving children, so that when they go to school, they are compassionate, caring children. And who knows, they might make a difference in somebody else's kids who doesn't have loving parents, who doesn't come from a household where they have a strong support system. But here your child comes with the love of God and shows that kid how to be different.
Yeah.
It's all about love.
Agreed.
At the end of the day, I think love is the center of everything, and it solves so many things.
Love conquers all.
Love and compassion. Teach your children to be compassionate. Teach your children to stand up when they see somebody bullying someone for just little things, you know, like, hey, that's not okay. Just show them how to stop those little things when they're in elementary school, so that they make a difference in other kids' lives before it's too late.
Yeah. You definitely have to start from young, not once they're teenagers and you're trying to break habits that have been molded for years.
Exactly. It's a lot harder when they're already a teenager. I mean, it's still doable because they're still teenagers. They're still very young. They're not even adults. But it's so much easier to start molding them the right way and raising them to be loving, caring kids when they're little. Elementary school age is so important. All right, that's it for today's podcast, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Hit the bell so you can be notified every time we post a video. If you're listening to us on Spotify or any other platform, don't forget to leave your comments. And until next time.
Peace.